Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming SCS exams happening in May 2025. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session plan. First things first, I'm going to share some general feedback with you based on what I've understood after marking your papers. And also I will be conducting, I will be taking you through rather the syllabus concerning your P3 pillar. And after doing so, I will take you through one of the mock exams, which I've taken from mock exam 1. And this will be followed by a Q&A session. So let me quickly remind you of the upcoming workshops we have scheduled for you. So there's only 2 more workshops happening. So the next workshop is happening on Saturday, the 10th of May, in which I'm going to share information about how your E3 related knowledge can be tested. And also I will be taking you through one of the mock exams concerning your E3 syllabus. Also, in the final workshop, which happens 2 or 3 days before your examination, I will be sharing last minute tips with you to make sure that you walk into the exam with a high level of positivity. All right, so first things first, talking about what I've understood after marking your answer scripts, still I feel that there is a significant improvement, especially given the fact that compared to what you did in mocks 1 or 2, your performance has significantly improved, which is a good thing. However, still, I feel that whenever a student cannot clearly understand the requirement, there's a tendency for students to develop answers which are not totally aligned with the requirement at hand. So, as I mentioned in the third webinar, as well as in last week's workshop, before you develop your answer plan, you are supposed to simplify the requirement with the prime intention of gaining a clear understanding of each requirement. And at the same time, whilst developing the answer plan, when you have a simplified answer, simplified requirement rather at your disposal, you can easily check whether you are developing an answer which is aligned with the requirement. So in order to avoid the first issue, deflection from task requirement, you are supposed to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a simpler manner. Also, I saw that 1 or 2 of you are still including an introductory paragraph. In the first paragraph itself, you are simply, developing an introduction into your answer. And in this introduction, usually I see that you are reiterating pre-seen information or unseen information. One of you, when developing the answer, always have a tendency to start by saying that I am the senior finance manager of this company and I'm reporting to the CFO, which should not be the case because, as I told you in the previous webinars and workshops, you are supposed to, play the role of a senior finance manager within your company. Yes, that's true. However, the examiner tries to replicate a real life corporate environment. So it's as if you are receiving an email from a board member or the CFO to whom you directly report. And when responding to an email, will you ever mention the fact that you are the senior finance manager of the company and you are expected to report to the CFO? No. Right after reading through the scenario or right after reading through what appears within each email, your job is to come up with a direct answer, direct response, which is totally aligned with the information shared with you, which is totally aligned with the requirement at hand. So avoid this unnecessary introductory paragraph, because if you do so, you are wasting your time. And on top of that, you should not replicate pre-seen information or unseen information, particularly unseen information, because it makes no sense. For instance, you should only bring in pre-seen information with the intention of enhancing your arguments. If you want to back up your arguments with appropriate justifications, then you can bring in pre-seen info. I highlighted how to do this in the third webinar, as well as in the master classes. I've explained how to do so. And at the same time, there's absolutely no point of replicating or reiterating the information presented in your scenario or information presented in your unseen, because let's assume you are receiving an email from the technology director, when you reiterate the information which the technology director himself shared with you, it adds no value, because the technology director already is aware of what he or she typed within the email's body, the type of information he shared with you as an attachment or as a reference material. So there's absolutely no point of reiterating unseen information or the scenarios information, because you are responding to an email. The person who sent you the email is already aware of what he or she included within the body of the email or included as attachments to the email. So don't ever reiterate unseen information. And whenever you are highlighting pre-seen information, do it with the intention of enhancing the quality of your arguments. Don't simply mention pre-seen information and generic pre-seen information and expect to gain any marks, which is not going to be the case. And when going through one of the answers, I also figured out that there's a tendency of one of you to start the answer by saying that Leothayre is a small satellite manufacturer which specializes in manufacturing CubeSats, and we have already launched 64 successful satellite missions. So this information is already, this type of information is already available to board members. The board members will definitely know what the company is up to and whether it was successful in the past or not. So there's absolutely no point of you repeating this information, because you won't do so when you are operating in a real life corporate environment at office. You won't simply mention within the email body about what your company has done in the past or what your company is doing at the moment. Instead, you'll simply address the requirement at hand, considering the information shared with you via the email. So that's the same methodology which you need to adhere to when developing your answers. So don't include an introductory paragraph, get into the answer straight away, and don't reiterate unseen information, which makes absolutely no sense, which does not add any value. And on top of that, don't reiterate generic pre-seen information. Instead, bring in pre-seen info with the intention of enhancing the logic or enhancing the quality of your answer. And when marking papers, I figured out that there is a lack of theory knowledge and application, especially tied to your P3 and F3 syllabi. That's quite normal. If you are coming through an exemption route, you will definitely have knowledge gaps. Also, you will struggle a lot with application. That's why when marking papers of students who are coming through the FLP route, I figured out that even when students are aware of the theoretical concept to be used when developing an answer, there's a tendency to explain the theoretical elements, which makes absolutely no sense. So, a considerable amount of time and effort has been put into explaining theoretical concepts. Your CFO or or one of your directors are not interested to learn theories. Instead, your CFO or one of the other directors are looking for sound recommendations, sound evaluations. So there's no point of explaining theoretical concepts. So for instance, when addressing a question to do with risk management, you are supposed to utilize the TARA framework, the TARA framework. So before you manage a risk, you need to evaluate the risk. So when evaluating the risk, you are supposed to consider the impact of the risk and the likelihood of recurrence of the risk. So after considering these two elements, you are supposed to categorize the risks, categorize each risk. And after the risk categorization, as per the TARA framework, you are supposed to come up with a risk mitigatory strategy. So when addressing this type of a question, there's absolutely no point of explaining the TARA framework in its entirety. Instead, you need to categorize the risk. After categorizing it as per the TARA framework, simply focus on the risk mitigation strategy, which you are supposed to recommend. Out of the 4 strategies, you are supposed to recommend just one strategy. So explain that strategy only. If, as per the TARA framework, you categorize the risk as a transfer strategy, under a transfer strategy, then explain about the transfer strategy. Don't explain about the remaining strategic options at your disposal. So don't explain the theoretical concepts. Instead, stick to your point. When developing answers, you are supposed to bring in your theoretical knowledge. However, you need to know how to apply your theoretical knowledge. That's why you need to watch the masterclasses. After watching masterclasses, you need to test for yourself whether you have learned the theoretical concepts and whether you are capable of applying these theoretical concepts considering the information presented in each scenario. So that's exactly why it's essential that you redevelop answer plans on your own, which is the only way to improve your application skills. So learn theory and application by watching masterclasses. After doing so, test for yourself whether you have improved your application skills or whether you are capable of applying theoretical knowledge as per the required level of quality. So in order to overcome knowledge gaps and issues with application, watch masterclasses and redevelop answer plans to further improve your theory knowledge and application skills. And still, I feel that some of you are struggling with determining the number of answer points. So as I mentioned in the third webinar, as well as in last week's workshop, you are supposed to understand the mark allocations based on the weightage provided. The weightage gives you an indication of how much marks are allocated on a subtask by subtask basis. After understanding mark allocations, you are supposed to determine the number of points which you need to include within each subtask, since each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So I've explained all these things in depth in the third webinar. If you missed it, please go watch it. It's essential that you watch it so that you learn the answering technique. And still you guys are running out of time. That's quite normal because I expect you guys to attempt each mock exam without going through the suggested answers, the answer plans, or the master classes. So when you have knowledge gaps, you will keep thinking and trying to come up with an answer. You'd struggle a lot. So you will definitely run out of time. That's totally fine. Stick to the process, because once you are done with the mock exam, when you're supposed to watch master classes and redevelop answer plans, then when similar type of questions are thrown at you at your real exam, you will know how to address each type of question. So for instance, in last week's workshop, we covered an element concerning your F3 syllabus tied to funding options. So now you know, after watching last week's workshop, and I expected you guys to redevelop the answer plans as well if you had done your revision. If a funding option related question is thrown at you at your real exam, now you know what to include within the answer and how to structure your answer. So likewise, the objective of attempting mock exams is to understand how your knowledge is tested, improve your answering time management and stress management techniques, and you are supposed to conduct revision. When conducting revision, your objective is to learn theories and improve application skills. And once you stick to the process at your exam, although you are struggling when attempting mock exams, at your exam, when you have attempted all 6 mocks and conducted your revision, you need not worry. You will know how to address each and every type of question which is thrown at you, because you know how to structure your answers. So stick to the process. When attempting mocks, you will struggle. Don't worry. I just want you to see where you stand as a student, because if you stick to the process, you are taking steps to make sure that you cover the entire syllabus. You'll be conversant with how each syllabus area is tested at your exam. You will understand how to structure your answers appropriately. And if you tackle these 2 elements, you will not struggle at your real examination. So that's the general feedback which I wanted to share with you after going through your answer scripts. All right, then let me quickly explain which syllabus areas concerning your P3 pillar will be tested at the exam. So I'm going to direct your attention towards the syllabus coverage document, which indicates the syllabus areas which are covered within our 6 mock exams. So concerning your P3 syllabus, higher level of weightage is provided towards risk identification and mitigation capabilities. So under this pillar, different types of risks will be thrown at you, especially the type of risks which are highlighted within your risk report. In addition to the risks which appear within the risk report, if there are any shortcomings or if there are any risks which your organization has not identified, these can be tested as well. So if you had gone through our pre-scene analysis videos, you know what I'm talking about. If you watched our second pre-scene analysis, second webinar rather, in which I conducted a pre-scene analysis partially. I took you through one of the risks highlighted within the risk report, and at the same time, I highlighted that there are shortcomings, or there are certain risks which we should have identified concerning the industry in which we operate, concerning our internal dynamics. So, the examiner will definitely share a risk report which has loopholes in it, with the intention of making sure that you are capable of identifying these loopholes and therefore capable of coming up with better mitigatory strategies. So when attempting mocks, you should be interested in attempting mocks which are pre-scene specific. I highlighted why this is important in the third webinar as well, because some of you have a tendency of referring to past exam variants. Always remember, past exam variants, or the questions or the scenarios which appear within past exam variants, are relevant to a totally different pre-scene document. And in each of the past pre-scene documents, the risk report is totally different to that of yours, because the past pre-scenes are based on different industries. So the type of risks affecting different industries are totally different to a satellite manufacturing industry. So that's why you have to make up your mind to attempt mocks which are pre-scene specific. If so, you stand a chance to understand how your knowledge concerning the risk report can be tested. And at the same time, not just the risk report, or not just the risks which appear within the risk report. If there are any shortcomings, these type of risks will be tested in addition to any other relevant risks which appear within your syllabus. So there's a mention about an industry uncertainty risk within your risk report. So we have highlighted, we have covered this element. There's a mention of regulatory risks, which regulations which are ever changing is exposing companies within this industry to major issues. Also, there's a technological failure risk, and we are dependent on our suppliers. And if our suppliers, for instance, supply us with a substandard component, it impacts the quality of the launch, quality of the satellites which we manufacture, and the success of the launch rather. And also, there's a client dependency risk because we are relying on a limited number of customers. And if we lose one single customer, it will impact our revenues, thus profitability negatively. This is crucial given the fact that it appears that we are struggling a bit with regards to repaying our interests, loan interests. So, repaying our finance costs because as per the financial statements of Leothayre, our interest cover is 1:1, which indicates that for now, we are generating enough operating profits, which enables us to repay loan interests or the finance costs on time. But in the future, if we are exposed to a situation where we lose out one of our customers, and because of that our revenues deplete, with that our operating profits will decrease. With decreasing operating profits, we might struggle to repay our finance costs. If so, then we might have to go for debt restructuring, or we might have to face bankruptcy as well. So there is a major risk concerning client dependency. And also, we are exposed to macroeconomic risks tied to forex movements, given the fact that we are dealing with multiple stakeholders, both clients as well as launch providers who are spread across the world. And on top of that, we are exposed to political risk as well. And due to political instability in certain regions, it might impact our launches in a negative manner. So these are the type of risks which appear within the risk report. In addition to what appears within your risk report, you have to be conversant with other types of risks as well. So we are exposed to the environmental risks concerning our industry, or the space debris risk. So the examiner gives us a hint about this being definitely being tested at your real examination. As per the internal dynamics of Leothayre, we don't believe in sustainability. We don't believe in safeguarding the environment. That's why if you go through our vision, mission, and values, there's no mention about sustainability or environmental stewardship or ESG goals. So definitely this will be tested. So I've included this within one of the mock exams. Also, we are exposed to the intellectual property risks because although it does not appear within the risk report, definitely we are exposed to IP risks, especially given the fact that we are operating in a dynamic market, which is ever evolving or ever changing. So in such, when operating within such a market, when trying to be competitive, we'd have to be innovative. So this mention about constant innovation within our value system as well. So if we are to constantly innovate, then definitely we have to, when we are constantly innovating, we have to definitely safeguard our intellectual property. So I've highlighted such a question within one of the mock exams. And we are also exposed to cyber security, data security, and privacy risks. Although there is no mention within the risk report about these type of risks, you should remember that we run and manage our own ground stations. And via these ground stations, we are gathering data about the performance of satellites. And for instance, if we pursue related diversification, thereby moving towards SaaS business, or if we move towards a satellite as a service business with the intention of reducing our dependency on a limited number of clients with the intention of generating additional revenues, then we will deal with data, much more data than what we are dealing with at the moment, because in a satellite as a service business model, we are not only focusing on sending, manufacturing, and launching satellites. We are focusing on selling data. And when it comes to selling data, it's essential that we safeguard this data. And also, when we are sharing this data, we might have to use different types of platforms, third-party platforms. When doing so, we have to ensure that we prevent the risk of data privacy as well. So it's essential that we invest on cyber security, data security, or privacy, or else we'd be exposed to these type of risks in the future. So I've included one such question concerning cyber security as well. And we are also exposed to social engineering risk, or risk of phishing attacks. And if we are exposed to these type of risks, it will question our IP safeguards, intellectual property safeguards, as well as our cybersecurity safeguards in play. So I've also covered this element within one of the mock exams. Also, we are exposed to reputational risks, especially given the fact that we are exposed to client dependency risk. So if our reputation is harmed, and because of that, if we lose one single customer, then our revenues will be impacted negatively, and therefore we'd have to face financial pressures in the future. So definitely reputational risks and mitigatory strategies will be tested at the exam. And you should also be capable, or you should also know how to update the risk register, because there's a certain methodology which you are supposed to adhere to when it comes to updating the risk register. So I've included one such question within one of the mock exams as well. So all these types of risks are covered within the 6 mocks which we have developed, along with appropriate mitigatory strategies. Also, under the P3 syllabus, internal audit responsibilities will be tested. So you should know how our internal audit department should operate. So you should, first things first, understand why internal audit responsibilities appear within the P3 syllabus, because the P3 syllabus is everything tied to risks and control, how to identify and evaluate risks, and therefore come up with mitigatory action. And after coming up with mitigatory strategies, we have to implement these strategies. When it comes to implementing these strategies, we have to make sure that we impose appropriate controls to make sure that everybody within the organization is sticking to these controls. So that's why internal audit responsibilities appear within your P3 syllabus. So you should be conversant about what type of responsibilities the internal audit department should have to carry out when conducting acquisition negotiations, because definitely there will be a question tied to us pursuing some type of an acquisition. It could be a large company, or it could be a small company. So I've included both these elements within the mock, so that you know how to value each type of business, which has nothing to do with your P3 syllabus. Business valuations fall under your F3 syllabus, but I'm just explaining how these knowledge areas can be tested at the exam. And if we go for some type of an acquisition, we have to conduct negotiations. When doing so, there's a certain methodology which you need to conduct these negotiations, so that we conduct a holistic negotiation process. So tied to all this knowledge acquisition, negotiation related elements will be tested. Also, you should know how to conduct internal audits concerning the information presented in each scenario. So this is going to be a practical way of testing your understanding, testing your knowledge levels. And you should also know how our internal audit department should carry out compliance testing, because as I mentioned earlier, after identifying a risk, we have to evaluate a risk considering the impact and likelihood of recurrence. Then after doing so, we have to categorize the risk. After categorizing the risk, we have to come up with appropriate mitigatory action. After developing mitigatory action, we have to implement them. And implementation has everything to do with setting up controls. After setting up controls, we should test whether everybody is adhering to these controls. So that's why compliance testing related responsibilities will be tested at your examination. Also, you should be able to come up with some internal controls with the intention of preventing data breaches, especially given the fact that this is a shortcoming. As per our risk report, we have not identified this risk. So definitely, you should have the capability of developing internal controls to prevent a data breach from occurring in the future. And also, you should have the capability of suggesting internal controls to prevent any type of risk, prevent any type of internal issue from occurring in the future as per the information presented in each scenario. So these are the P3 related syllabus elements. Yes, I've covered everything. These are the P3 related syllabus elements which can be tested at the exam. So let's look at how your knowledge can be tested when I'm taking you through today's mock exam. So before we walk into the mock exam, let me quickly tell you what we offer at TCS. So I'm on the SCS page. Click on this button to create a free user account. And once you have done so, this button will, you'll see this button which reads as Access Dashboard. Click on it, go to My Courses, and in front of SCS Free, you'd see the Access Content button. Please click on it. And once you do so, you'd gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops which we conduct. You'd also gain access to free study resources, which includes the SCS syllabus areas which can be tested, the pre-seen document, and the pre-seen mind map. You would have already downloaded this document, which is the pre-seen mind map. So this is freely available. Go through this mind map on a daily basis to make sure that you remember the most important points which appear within your pre-seen document. So on top of that, you also gain access to the answer plan of mock exam 1, which you are going to see in a little while. And you'd also gain access to the first mock exam, the questions and the answers free of charge. And also via the exams tab, you have the option of attempting SCS mock 1 under exam conditions via an exam platform, which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system on which you attempt your real examination. So this is the best way to test your answering time management and stress management techniques by attempting each mock exam under exam conditions. So under the free content, you have the opportunity to attempt mock exam 1, the entire mock exam under exam conditions via our exam platform. So these are the free resources on offer. So create a free user account and refer to these resources. And if you're interested on investing on our paid content, click on this button and check the free resource, check the sample material before you invest on your preferred course. And if you're yet to join the SCS WhatsApp discussion forum, click on this button and join it. Via this group, we'll keep you guys informed about the weekly webinars and workshops, the commencement dates and times. And at the same time, we'll share free resources with you. And if you have any questions and concerns, I'm always there to help you guys out and therefore address these questions and concerns. And talking about what we offer 2 packages, the essential course and the premium course. The essential course is intended for those who had completed their OTQ exams, E3, P3, and F3 OTQs. So because you have completed your OTQs, you are already conversant with the theoretical elements. You simply need to improve your application skills. So under the essential course, you'd gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops, 6 mock exams with suggested answers, which are intended to cover all syllabus areas. And our mocks are pre-seen specific, 100% aligned with your pre-seen document. You'd also gain access to 4 pre-seen analysis videos, so you need not try and decrypt pre-seen information on your own. We have done it for you. You'd also gain access to the annotated pre-seen industry analysis and financial analysis slides. Let me quickly show you what these resources look like. So this is what the annotated pre-seen looks like. So I've come up with, a short note of the entire pre-seen or summaries of the entire pre-seen as part of these annotations. And also we have conducted our own analysis, thereby highlighting any shortcomings if there are any. And also, we've also highlighted the probable exam scenarios which can be thrown at you at your real exam. And tied to these exam scenarios, we have highlighted the syllabus areas which can be tested. And when developing the mock exams, we have made sure to cover all these exam scenarios and syllabus elements. Also, our industry analysis slides are divided into 4 main parts. In the first part, we have provided an explanation into your industry by defining your industry. And in the second and third parts, we have explained about the competitive landscape and the industry trends. And at your exam, scenarios will be thrown at you based on these industry trends. And towards the very end of this document, we have considered 2 real-life companies, thereby explaining how these 2 real-life companies operate, so that you'd gain a clearer understanding of how real-life companies operate within your chosen industry. And we also provided a financial analysis based on the financial statements of your own company and its closest competitor. We have come up with annotations, making sure to keep things simple so that you can easily understand what appears within each financial statement. So we have evaluated the SOPL, the SOFP, and the statement of changes in equity. And at the very end, we have conducted a ratio analysis, thereby comparing your company's performance against its closest competitor. So these are the resources on offer under the essential course. You'd also gain access to the top 20 likely issue slides, which indicate the most probable scenarios which can be tested at the exam. You'd gain access to the case study familiarization kit. Once you read through this kit, you will gain an in-depth understanding about the technicalities behind your SCS exam. You'd also gain access to a tutor-managed live chat and OTQ revision cards. So as I mentioned earlier, the essential course is intended for those who are conversant with theoretical elements and those who are simply supposed to improve their application skills. So after attempting each mock exam, if you feel that you struggled with a certain theoretical element, simply refer to our OTQ revision cards in a jiffy. You are in a position to brush up your knowledge because you have already learned theories. It makes your life easy when it comes to brushing up your knowledge when you have concise notes at your disposal. So the essential course is priced at £299. And talking about the premium course is designed for those who are coming through the exemption route or those who had failed the SCS exam previously. So both these sets of students have the same problem. There are gaps in theory knowledge and issues with application. So we have come up with additional resources with the intention of ensuring that you learn all syllabus areas before walking into the exam. Also, you learn how to apply these theoretical concepts when developing your answers. So on top of what you'd gain access to under the essential course, you'd also gain access to the online mock exam platform on which you can attempt all 6 mock exams under exam conditions, which is the best way to fine-tune your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. You will receive one-on-one tutor feedback on 2 mock exams, namely mocks 3 and 5. Let me quickly show you the type of feedback which we offer at TCS. As you can see, we have evaluated each and every point in depth with the prime intention of highlighting your shortcomings, because if you understand your shortcomings right now, you stand a chance of taking steps to avoid these shortcomings in your preparations. If so, you will be successful at your real exam. You won't repeat the same type of mistakes at your real examination. So this is the type of feedback on offer at TCS. And at the very end, we have indicated the marks rather in on a subtask by subtask basis. Also, we have indicated a success rate, which indicates the subtasks in which your performance was substandard. So focus on the subtasks which are highlighted in yellow after receiving tutor feedback, and focus on the subtasks which are highlighted in yellow and pre-develop answer plans, which is the best way to further improve your understanding about how to work on your application skills and how to structure your answers, which is the best way to avoid issues or overcome issues when conducting your preparations. So these are the type of feedback on offer under the premium course. You'd also gain access to the answer plans of all 6 mock exams. You will see what an answer plan looks like in a little while, rather than having to go through pages and pages of suggested answers and trying to figure out the logic behind each answer, trying to figure out how to work on application, trying to figure out how to structure your answers. You can simply and easily refer to our answer plans and see how you should structure each answer, what type of points you need to include when developing answers. And at the same time, when conducting revision, I expect you guys to redevelop answer plans. So after you had redeveloped answer plans, simply compare your fresh answer plans to TCS's to understand what your shortcomings are. And you'd also gain access to 15 masterclasses in total. So from mocks 2 to 6, you will gain access to 15 masterclasses. In each mock exam, there are 3 sections, just like in your real exam. So 3 sections into 5 mocks come up to 15 sections in total. So focused on each section, we have developed a masterclass, and you will see in a little while how we conduct our masterclasses, because I'm going to take you through today's mock exam akin to how I conduct my other masterclasses. So the best way to learn theory and improve application skills is by watching these masterclasses. And therefore, when you have access to all these resources, you will pass for sure. That's why we are providing a pass guarantee for the premium course. So if you invest on the premium course and end up failing, you'd gain access to the premium content in your subsequent sitting free of charge. However, in order to claim the pass guarantee, you have to complete these 3 requirements. You have to complete all 6 mocks. If not, you'd be testing your luck at your real exam. Your answers should be original, so don't refer to answer plans, suggested answers, or the master classes before attempting each mock exam. Do it on your own. And the third step is to make sure that you achieve the performance criteria, in which you achieve 40% or higher for the last 3 mock exams, because by the time you are in the last 3 mocks, you have a better understanding or a better practice of your answering and time management techniques. So you can easily achieve more than 40%. And we have come up with this criteria to make sure that you do a serious job when it comes to attempting the last 3 mock exams. So the premium package is priced at £849, which can be paid in 2 installments of £424 each. Or if you pay in full, you will get a £100 discount. If so, the price is going to be just £749. So you can invest on your preferred course by clicking on either of these buttons. And all products are available until the 30th of August 2025. So if you are planning on sitting for SCS exams happening in August, you can invest now and start your preparations, which gives you some additional time so that you can conduct your preparations in a stress-free environment. And let me quickly take you through the SCS study plan as well, because some of you are sticking to our original 8-week study plan. In last week's workshop, I shared a 3-week study plan with you as well. So if you're sticking to our 8-week study plan, let's see what you're supposed to do within this week. We are in week number 6 as per our 8-week study plan. So you are supposed to dedicate 9 hours of study time within this week. And this week is dedicated towards mock number 5. So you are supposed to attempt mock number 5 via the exam platform. After doing so, watch the 3 masterclasses to learn theory and improve application skills. And once you have done so, pre-develop answer plans, because just watching the masterclasses won't help. You have to test and see whether you have learned something via the masterclasses and whether you are capable of structuring your answers, which are similar to TCS's. So redevelop answer plans, thereby conducting revision. And once you're done with it, refer to personalized tutor feedback, which you'd receive for mock exam 5, in which you'd understand the shortcomings. And once you have received tutor feedback, focused on the subtasks which are highlighted in yellow, pre-develop answer plans once more. All right, so that's what you're supposed to do within this week if you're sticking to our original 8-week study plan. Having said that, let's move on to the second part of today's workshop, in which I'm going to take you through one of the mock exams mock exam 1 to be precise, concerning a P3 related syllabus area. All right, so we are in SCS mock number 1, section number 2. The time allocation is 60 minutes. The CFO stops at your workstation and hands over a document. Please go through this document with which is an excerpt of board meeting minutes. I need your advice on following matters. So let's look at the additional information shared with you. During a recent strategic meeting, our operations director briefed the board on Leothayre's successful development and testing of a proprietary satellite deorbiting technology. So we have innovated something. We had developed and tested a proprietary satellite deorbiting technology. So as per the Space Junk Charter, the government is actually asking players within this industry to work on their deorbiting technology with the intention of addressing the space junk problem. So thereby we're trying to align with the SJC, our organization or our company had developed and tested a proprietary satellite deorbiting technology. The innovation ensures reliable end-of-life re-entry, reducing orbital debris while offering a cost-effective alternative to current deorbiting systems. So our innovation is cost-effective compared to all the other solutions out there. Unlike other models, Leothayre's design is cheaper to build and implement even amidst rising satellite construction costs. So this gives us significant competitive advantage. Interest from other manufacturers has surged, with several seeking to license the technology to support their ESG goals. So other players within the industry want our technology. The board acknowledges the revenue opportunity and potential to reduce dependency on a limited client base, but is also mindful of intellectual property risks and the risk of losing competitive advantage. So, since this innovation gives us competitive advantage, if we go down the route of, sharing our intellectual property under a licensing agreement, we have to make sure that it does not impact our competitive edge in an adverse manner. Also, we have to be mindful of the intellectual property risks which we are exposed to if we try to share this technology with other players within the industry. To mitigate this, Leothayre plans to use third-party escrow services to safeguard sensitive design data along with patent protections and NDAs or non-disclosure agreements. These measures aim to maintain control over intellectual property while enabling secure licensing and supporting long-term growth, and sustainability. All right, so we can benefit from an additional revenue stream if we share this technology with competitors out there under a licensing agreement, which is good for us, which helps us reduce our dependency on a limited number of clients. However, this exposes us to a certain set of risks tied to intellectual property and us losing our competitive edge. So all these things should be considered before we pursue this initiative in which we go forward with sharing our proprietary intellectual property. Okay, so that's what's highlighted within the reference material. So I want to direct your attention towards subtask 2. Recommend the activities that Leothayre's internal audit department should perform to ensure the protection of the proprietary technology and intellectual property related to satellite deorbiting technology. So how can we safeguard our intellectual property, and what type of activities our internal audit department should carry out with the intention of safeguarding our intellectual property? All right, so before you are supposed to develop the answer plan, you are supposed to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. Why are you expected to do so? With the intention of gaining a clear understanding of the requirement at hand. If so, you'd end up developing an answer which is 100% aligned with the requirement. Also, when you simplify the requirement, as I mentioned earlier, whilst developing the answer plan, you can easily check and see in a jiffy whether you are developing an answer which is aligned with the requirement at hand. So let's see how we are supposed to simplify the requirement. So we are in task 2, internal audit responsibilities, how to secure the intellectual property. So this is quite a lengthy requirement, and when you are operating in a time pressured environment, when you are exposed to exam stress, you'd have to read through these type of lengthy requirements over and over to gain a clear understanding. And whilst developing the answer, when you have to refer back to a lengthy requirement, it makes it exposes you to a lot of complexity. So simplify your process by simplifying the requirements. So I've simplified it as internal audit responsibilities tied to securing the intellectual property. So the weightage provided is 30%. Based on that, 15 marks are allocated. So in order to score 15 marks, as you know, each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So if you are to score 15 marks, you need to come up with 5 to 7 valid points within your answer. So 15 divided by 2 comes up to something like 7.5, and 15 divided by 3 comes up to something like 5 points. So if you assume that 2 points are dedicated for each valid point, then come up with 7 points. And on the other hand, if you believe that 3 points are dedicated for each valid point, you are supposed to come up with 5 valid points. So if you come up with 5 to 7 valid points within your answer, then you stand a chance to score full marks. As per the weightage, it's 15 marks. All right, so let's look at how we should structure your answer. Let me scroll down to the relevant area. All right, so I've developed the answer. I've started the answer plan by developing a main heading, which is in bold and underlined format as per what I highlighted in the third webinar. And the title goes as internal audit. All right, so first things first, our internal audit department, before they come up with intellectual property safeguards, they have to conduct a risk assessment. Because after conducting a risk assessment, then a company is supposed to come up with risk mitigatory strategies. So before doing all these things, before trying to safeguard our intellectual property, first things first, our internal audit department should see what type of risks which we are exposed to at the moment. So when conducting this risk assessment, our internal audit department should check the effectiveness of our current intellectual property management controls in place. We have to see whether currently we are documenting our intellectual property appropriately, and whether these documents are appropriately filed and protected. There could be, these files could be physical files or digital files. Irrespective of the way in which we maintain our intellectual property related documentation, we have to come up with system controls as well as system safeguards, as well as physical safeguards, with the intention of preventing our IP related documents and files. Also, we have to check and see whether our organization is regularly updating our patents or not. If our patents are outdated, then it does not safeguard our intellectual property. So first things first, the internal audit department should check the effectiveness of our current intellectual property management related exercises within Leothayre. And also, the internal audit department should look into the industry and see whether they can spot any violations of intellectual property. So we can learn from other players within the industry as well. Because when you consider other satellite manufacturers, when you evaluate them, when you figure out that some of them were exposed to intellectual property risks, then we can conduct further investigations to see how these companies were exposed to intellectual property risks. And by identifying the type of issues other players within the industry faced tied to intellectual property, then we can learn from them and therefore come up with appropriate strategies, prevention strategies, to safeguard our intellectual property before us being exposed to similar issues which our competitors faced in the past. So we have to look at our industry players to spot violations of intellectual property, thereby conducting investigations about the type of intellectual property risks or issues these companies faced, and whether these players were exposed to some type of cybersecurity risks, which led to cybersecurity theft, because intellectual property can be breached if there are shortcomings in cybersecurity within a company. Also, we have to conduct evaluations to see whether these companies which were exposed to intellectual property risks were affected or impacted by insider risks. Insider risk is a situation where our own staff members take steps knowingly or unknowingly to breach our internal controls, which in turn exposes a company towards intellectual property risks. So we have to see how the industry players had been impacted by these type of risks, and how these players within the industry has reacted when faced with these type of risks, and therefore with the intention of learning from the industry and implementing better safeguards within our company. And also, when conducting an evaluation, this question is tied to a scenario where we are trying to license our intellectual property. So just focusing on intellectual property management and just trying to spot violations of intellectual property by looking at the industry won't help. We have to look at the potential vulnerabilities and threats tied to licensing agreements as well. So that's one of the prime responsibilities of the internal audit department when conducting a risk assessment. And after assessing each type of risk exposure, we have to develop mitigatory strategies for each type of risk. That's a prime responsibility of the internal audit department. And when coming up with these mitigatory strategies, you have to look at the impact and probability of each risk. So I said that first things first, you need to identify the risk. That's what a risk assessment is all about. After identifying a risk, you have to evaluate the risk. When evaluating the risk, you are supposed to look at the impact and probability. After you had evaluated the risk, based on your evaluation, based on your risk categorization, you can come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies. So that's what's tied with risk assessment related checks, risk identification related checks our internal audit department should conduct. Based on these checks, they have to come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies. So that's the first responsibility of our internal audit department. Then also they should review and verify the effectiveness of licensing and escrow arrangements, because this question is tied to us pursuing a licensing agreement via an escrow arrangement with the intention of sharing our intellectual property. So our internal audit department should review and verify the effectiveness of licensing and escrow arrangements. Therefore, our internal audit department should conduct credibility checks concerning the escrow services provider. We might, evaluate multiple escrow services providers. So, we have to make sure our internal audit department conducts credibility checks concerning all these escrow services providers who had approached us with the intention of providing services. So these credibility checks will ensure that we select the best escrow services provider, and also we conduct tests to figure out whether these escrow services providers are providing effective services or not. And also when conducting these reviews or verification processes, we have to see the alignment of escrow arrangements terms with Leothayre's security objectives. So we have to see whether these terms and conditions of the escrow services provider aligns with our existing security infrastructure, security objectives in place. Also, we have to check the effectiveness of intellectual property release conditions, thereby going through the escrow service agreements. We have to see how the escrow services provider has defined intellectual property release conditions and whether these intellectual property release conditions are enforceable or not. Because if these intellectual property release conditions are not properly defined, or if these conditions are not enforceable, there's absolutely no point of us going for an escrow, going for services offered by an escrow services provider. So with this in mind, our internal audit department should review and verify the effectiveness of licensing and escrow arrangements. Also, it's essential that our internal audit department review the non-disclosure agreements, because there's a mention of us signing non-disclosure agreements as per the reference material, which I took you through a while back. So when reviewing these non-disclosure agreements, our internal audit department should go through the structure of these NDAs, the content of these NDAs, and look at the enforcement capabilities, because if these NDAs are not enforceable, there's absolutely no point of signing a non-disclosure agreement. And when conducting this review, we have to make sure that our internal audit department covers confidentiality clauses, because signing a non-disclosure agreement is to safeguard confidentiality. Also, the non-disclosure agreement should mention the type of action we could take if we spot unauthorized usage of our intellectual property. And if someone breaches the non-disclosure agreements within the NDA itself, there should be a mention about the type of action which we can take, both legal and financial. Also, there should be a process which is indicated within each non-disclosure agreement tied to monitoring compliance, because we should have the ability at any given time to see whether the parties who had signed the non-disclosure agreements are complying to the terms and conditions which appear within the NDA. So with that in mind, we should have an appropriate compliance testing process as well. Also, we have to evaluate the internal controls concerning access to innovative technology within our own company, because as I mentioned earlier, we are exposed to, any type of company is exposed to insider risk or the type of risks created by their own staff members when it comes to safeguarding their intellectual property. So with that in mind, we have to see whether our internal controls are sound and successful, which will enable us to safeguard our intellectual property from insider risks. Therefore, internal audit department should look into access rights management concerning IT and IS, and also access rights management concerning our research and development facility within our workshop. Also, our internal audit department should check change controls to see if we are changing our internal controls, whether we are doing it in a structured manner, whether we are documenting all these changes, whether version controls are in place. And also, the internal audit department should check the credibility of our encryption, data encryption methodologies, which are intended to safeguard our data, and whether multi-factor authentication is in place, and whether multi-factor authentication is actually working, and whether employees are adhering to these controls or not. And also, it's essential that our internal audit department develop an ongoing monitoring plan, thereby taking steps to conduct regular audits post-licensing. So I explained about what we need to do pre-licensing before we go ahead with these licensing agreements, but our internal audit responsibility should not stop there. After licensing these agreements, or after pursuing these licensing agreements rather, we have to make sure that our internal audit department conduct regular audits concerning the escrow arrangements, to see whether these escrow arrangements are actually working or not, to see whether these escrow services providers are doing their job properly or not. Also, we have to see whether those who had signed these licensing agreements adhere to the non-disclosure agreements and the licensing agreements or the SLAs or the service level agreements in place. So with that in mind, with the intention of conducting regular audits, we have to develop an ongoing monitoring plan before we go ahead with these licensing agreements. Also, it's essential that we spend some time and effort on conducting training initiatives, and developing this training infrastructure is one of the prime responsibilities of our internal audit department. So this training should be focused on how to safeguard intellectual property, and within this training, we should highlight the importance of protecting intellectual property and the legal ramifications faced by any of the stakeholders due to violating these intellectual property safeguards and controls. So when you do so, we can make sure that both our internal employees as well as external stakeholders who are utilizing these intellectual property under licensing agreements are aware of the IP safeguards in place, the importance of protecting them, and the legal ramifications of violating these IP safeguards in place. All right, so these are the elements which you need to focus on when looking at internal audit responsibilities concerning the scenario at hand. So as you have learned under your P3 syllabus, when it comes to internal audit responsibilities, they are supposed to conduct risk assessments, and they are supposed to conduct reviews and verification processes. And also they are supposed to evaluate set internal controls as well as evaluate the existing internal control infrastructure. They are supposed to develop regular post licensing or regular audit capability. They should develop plans to conduct regular audits to see whether everybody is adhering to the controls which the organization has implemented. And at the same time, they have to conduct training concerning adherence to internal controls. So these are the elements which you have learned under your P3 syllabus. What I've done is I've mentioned the same type of points, taking some extra effort to make sure that I've related to the scenario at hand. So I've mentioned the same theoretical points, but I've taken steps to apply these theoretical concepts concerning the information at hand, concerning what's highlighted within your scenario. So that's exactly what you are expected to do. So now, since you know how to structure your answer, after this session, take a piece of paper, or you can type it on your computer as well. Try to see whether you are capable of developing a similar answer plan. If that is the case, then it appears that you have really understood what I explained, and whether you know for a fact that you are capable of implementing the knowledge which you have gained via this workshop. So redevelop the answer plan. Don't watch this video. Just redevelop the answer plan on your own. You can take any amount of time, because the objective is not to operate in a time pressured environment, but to see whether you have gained something out of this workshop. And once you have redeveloped the answer plan, compare your fresh answer plan to TCS's to see whether there are any issues which you still encounter when it comes to developing answer plans. And at the exam, after you have developed this type of an answer plan, your next step is to explain each point in depth, thereby expanding the answer plan. So when it comes to expanding the answer plan, you have to develop a paragraph per answer point. So your final answer should look like this. Always remember, this is how you should structure your answer. This is all about you planning your answer. But when it comes to your final answer, it should be in paragraph form, thereby developing a paragraph per answer point. So that's exactly what you can see throughout this suggested answer. So, check your knowledge by redeveloping answer plans, compare your answer plans to TCSs to see whether you still have gaps in knowledge, or whether you still face issues with application. So, until you get it right, you have to keep, replicating the same process, which is to redevelop answer plans over and over until you are satisfied, and until you know for a fact that you have covered all the points which I've highlighted within this answer plan. All right, so that's what I wanted to highlight concerning your P3 syllabus. So I'm happy to say that we achieved a 90% pass rate. I've done a blunder once more. This should be the SCS pass rate. So we achieved a 90% pass rate last time in the February 2025 sitting. So you can pass in your first sitting itself if you stick to our study process, which is to attempt all 6 mock exams, watch master classes to learn theory and improve application, and test your knowledge by redeveloping answer plans concerning all 6 mock exams. If you do so, you need not worry about passing this SCS examination, because we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas. When you know how each syllabus area is tested, and when you know how to structure your answer concerning each syllabus area, you need not worry about you passing the SCS exam. Okay, so having said that, I'm moving to the Q&A. Let me pause the recording. All right, folks, thank you for those questions. So if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. Visit our website and click on the contact button and drop your message. Our admin staff will get in touch with you via email during office hours. You can also email us at info@study@tcs.com or WhatsApp us on this number. Also, I urge you guys to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok. On YouTube, you'd gain access to the recorded version of the weekly webinars and workshops. And also via TikTok, you'd gain access to 6 videos, which covers the entire pre-scene, which is a pre-scene mind map. So watch these TikTok videos continuously until the day of your exam to constantly keep yourself reminded of what appears within your pre-scene document. Also, read the blog post which appears within the blog handle, so that you can refresh your memory of what this company is all about and in what type of an industry it operates at the moment. All right, so having said that, it brings us to the end of the second workshop conducted in lieu of the upcoming SCS exams. I hope you gain something out of this session. And as I mentioned previously, I hope you'd redevelop the answer plan concerning the question which we discussed a while back. Also, I hope you'd stick to our study process and push yourself to attempt mock exams, watch master classes, and redevelop answer plans, because if you do so, you need not worry about you passing this SCS exam. So I wish you all the very best and expect to see you guys next Saturday at 9 GMT or 10 AM UK, in which I'm going to take you through your E3 syllabus and at the same time take you through a question and its answer concerning the E3 syllabus. So thank you for joining. I'll see you guys next week.